if everybody can stand, please. Welcome, councillors, officers, members of the public in the gallery and on the live stream to the scheduled August meeting of Swan Hill Rural City Council. Swan Hill Rural City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pays its respects to their elders past and present. Councillor Young, the prayer, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We beseech you, Lord, that we may be granted wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose in the decisions we are called on to make for the welfare of the people of the rural city of Swan Hill.
Amen. Please be seated. We don't have any apologies or leaves of absence. Could I have somebody to confirm the minutes of the July meeting, please? We have Councillor Young, seconded Councillor Jeffrey. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Sorry, I missed Directors' Officers present. Sorry about that. So today the CEO is on leave, so we have Acting Chief Executive Officer Leah Johnson, Bruce Myers, Director of Community and Cultural Services, Laura O'Dwyer, who is the Acting Director of Infrastructure, Michelle Granger, Director of Development and Planning, and Barn Patak, Director of Corporate Services. Welcome. We've already done the minutes. Do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest, councillors? If not, we will move on. We have no joint letters or petitions. We have no request for open forum, so we will move into section 2 of the agenda. Item officer reports for decision. Agenda item 2.1, fair and equitable access for community sports infrastructure, to be presented by the Director of Development and Planning, Ms Granger.
Thank you, Mayor. Council's being encouraged to address equity in sport and have a policy that embeds that equity. This is supported by the Office for Women in Sport and Recreation and is encouraging us to take positive action to advance gender equality and use of community sporting facilities. The policy that is attached to this report will allow Council to deliver positive outcomes. It will also apply for our sporting clubs and is instrumental in us getting funding for community and sporting facilities through sport and recreation. We undertook community consultation through Let's Talk, a notice in the local papers and sending out letters to our sporting clubs. We received 4 submissions. 2 were positive. 1 queried the need for the policy and the urgency compared to other items. And another one didn't see that we captured equity and that we were really addressing women and not other minority groups. So generally positive feedback. We are seeking today that Council adopt this policy.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor McKay?
Ms Granger, do you think that this will take time for council staff and require raw resources for us to implement?
I think it will, but I think the change is already happening. So over the last few years, we've been addressing the needs for better change rooms in our recreation facilities. So it's not something new, but it is something that will be embedded in policy. So will make us consider it in more detail.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, a motion. Councillor Jeffrey?
I'll move as per the recommendation.
Thank you. Second to Councillor McPhee.
I would like to suggest an amendment.
You'd like to make an amendment?
Yes. Is that possible? Can I suggest that to you?
Yep.
Yeah. That SHRC write to the Victorian Ministers for Sport, the Honourable Ros Spence, to request funding for rural councils for resources to employ a staff member for 2 years to support council and local sporting and recreational clubs to comply with the new policy.
I believe that's been submitted and it will be on the board in a moment. Councillor Jeffrey, do you wish to accept that?
Can I just say it in writing,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah.
Can I add? It could be for 2 days, for 2 years. It will cost resources to do that.
have to accept it if the second is.
No, look, it's only for 2 years. I don't know whether to go all hold or nothing. I'm not accepting for 2 years.
Okay. In that case, do I?
Someone can second it still, though, can't they?
Pardon?
No,
Someone can still second.
They can't second of the amendment.
But someone else can. Yeah.
Yeah, so the seconder of the motion doesn't approve it, so the amendment would require a seconder to then become the motion. Do I have a seconder for the
I'll
amendment?
second the amendment.
Seconded Councillor Kelly. Councillor McKay, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
Yes, look, I think it's a really beneficial policy. It's worthwhile, but small rural councils such as ours have difficulty resourcing all of the infrastructure needs, and everyone already has work to do. I think this requires significant liaison with local sporting clubs, and they're all generally made up of volunteer workforce. And to do these sorts of policy work, it does take resources. And so I think to comply well, rather than it just being box ticking, it would be good if, when the state government wants to implement these policies across the state, that they recognise that rural councils actually need the resources to do these things.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, do you wish to speak to the motion? The amendment, sorry?
Yes, please. I support the amendment because I agree with Councillor McKay that, you know, we can bring in this policy, but as for being able to genuinely and adequately introduce it and get it adopted into practice, I think it would be great to have an officer who could assist clubs to do that. We are a sporting region, and we've got a lot of clubs. We've got 6,000 square kilometres of distance in our municipality, and there's really one of the big issues that I see is the fact that there's Clontarf in Robinvale and Swan Hill, but there's no Stars, which is the female equivalent of Clontarf. So if that can be pushed by an officer actually taking that as part of their workload, then I would see that as a great use of...
Councillor Kelly, I'll remind you to keep on topic of the motion, of the amendment in point, and this is about fair and equitable access policy in relation to sports facilities. Thank you.
So it would be council that sets this officer's job description, and that could be added to the job description. Thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, look, I'll speak again. Look, I can sympathise with the reason behind it to save us money. Look, unfortunately, this is a policy that Ms Granger said we've been encouraged to. It's actually been mandated by the state government to have this, or we don't get funding. If we ask for this type of position to be filled, it gives us less chance of getting funding, because they will give us money towards an officer, which I believe can be done by in-house staff as it is, without this. And as such, I think it's that's why I rejected the motion initially, the amendment to second it. The policy, by all means, yes, go ahead with the policy, but I think by asking this, if every council asks this, the government is broke as it is now. We're not about to be funding positions like this for policies. So I think we're just wasting our breath doing it, and if by some likely chance, some wide left-hand chance we've got the opportunity to get that funding, that will reduce our ability then to look at grant funding into the future, because they've already given us money for a position, not to actually implement the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. I hope you know the speakers in favour of the amendment. I'll take one more speaker against the amendment. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Nick. Basically, paraphrasing the list of things I have written here, we're just building a bigger bureaucracy. There's less money to go around for future grants. As Ms Granger has pointed out, we've been very successful up until now to get all that we need in this area. Our officers are fully on board. We've got grant streams come available and when they come available. And we're fully conversant with the needs of the municipality. also afraid that if we actually put an extra person on for 2 years' time, the council will be told in Bay and have to keep employing that person, which is how it's cost to us. Honestly, I think we can already do it in-house. We don't need to build a bigger bureaucracy, and we've done very well so far. So I don't think there's any need for them to save the money for grants in the total grant pool. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor McKay, you have the right of reply.
Thank you. I really appreciate that opportunity. I'm surprised at the objections because this could be a 2-day-a-week position for a couple of years, and that person could help to write those funding applications, and goodness knows we need more people to write funding applications. I think that in perspective of the state government, there's billions and billions of dollars being spent on infrastructure by the state government, on health and housing and so on, and this is actually a pittance, but it would help us to implement this policy well, and I can see no harm in us at least advocating. We may not be successful, but at least advocating for the reality that these policy ideas, worthy as they are, and they are worthy, but they do require writing and changing policies and doing audits of sporting clubs, which is what this is suggesting, all takes time. And to have recognition that the introduction of such significant new policies that have to be implemented across all our sporting clubs and not only in their infrastructure but also in the way they operate does require time, and if we want to do it, it would be nice to at least advocate for us to have the resources. I don't think it will cause the withdrawal of funding from any other area, but it may in all actuality result in increased funding because that person could help apply for funding. So thank you very much for considering this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. So we'll vote on
I have my hand up.
Sorry?
I have my hand up to speak against.
Yeah, I took one more speaker against, just in the interest of time, Councillor Young, because we have quite a large agenda. My apologies. The amendment is on the screen, so we'll vote on the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? The amendment is lost. So we'll revert to the motion. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to speak to the motion?
Councillor Bell, thank you. As Director Granger has mentioned in her introduction, it is a mandatory policy that all councils are expected to take. But we as a council have already put in place a number of basic issues in our buildings that I can highlight. Sorry, no microphone, I'll start again. As Dr. Granger introduced, it is a mandatory policy that all councils are expected to adopt as well as sporting groups. But it is something that we at the council have already put in place a number of the initiatives in some of our new buildings. If I could highlight, the Swan soccer rooms, it has female player and umpire change rooms for both female and male and all ability. Some of the work at our Wombavale netball courts, and a number of our master plans already have projects identified to, when we do renovations, to include or look at options to include or renovate buildings to allow a fair equity and ability for all people to access the buildings. It will take time to implement both as a council and for our grant submissions and working with the sporting groups to ensure that they're compliant. Well, that they're compliant, that allows us to be eligible for the grants that are put forward. Without that, it is just another criteria, another tick box that we have to ensure that we are meeting to be eligible for the funding. So support it and look forward to future works where we are continuing to progress on this as a council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor McPhee, you wish to speak?
Yeah, good.
Just microphone, please, Councillor McPhee. Thank you.
Yeah, just in, look, as I said before, Mr Granger said we were encouraged. Well, we weren't encouraged. We were mandated by the state government to have this policy. Without it, we won't get funding, or very less likely to get funding. As a council, we have been going along this path for a number of years. When the Woorolong Football Club was built, it was built with change rooms that were suitable for male and female. The soccer clubs are exactly the same thing. So we've been doing this already, and we've had to be doing this for a number of years. If you look at the policy-related legislation, you've got the Gender Equality Act, the Local Government Act, and the Equal Opportunity Act. So we've had to be doing this for a number of years. This is just basically putting in words what we have been doing without any extra costs. And I think it's a case of just being able to continue the funding, the success we have had in the funding in the sports area in relation to this. And it is important that we get access to all abilities to be able to be involved in whatever sport they want to be involved in. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Are there any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.2, plan for Victoria. Ms Granger.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The state government has released for consultation plan for Victoria. It's to replace the existing plan. They're seeking consultation on a range of issues, and what we have done is drafted a submission for consideration. One of the main issues that we'd like to address in the new plan for Victoria is that it really does provide a plan for all of the state, that it's not metrocentric and not also just focused on regional areas, but does provide guidance for rural Victoria. Key issues that we think need to be addressed ensure that roads and infrastructure is fit for purpose, particularly when we look at rural communities hosting for most of the renewable energy development, and also to ensure that our agricultural sector is supported in getting food to market. Recognition of the importance of housing. So we've had housing targets set for us as part of this process. We're saying we think our housing target of 1,500 to 2051 is not enough, and we'd like to see more ambitious targets set for our municipality. We want to ensure the livability of rural Victoria is maintained, and we'd like to see prioritisation of our health services and a range of community services for our community to be able to access, that the plan allows our communities to be adaptable and agile, particularly having regard to the impacts of climate change, that we acknowledge and that the state acknowledges the strength of the region along the Murray for that cross-border support and how important that is, that we seek alignment between strategic plans of not only council, the state and other local governments, but also other authorities who are planning for infrastructure that will assist Swan Hill and Robinvale to grow in particular. Works at updating our growth plans, which are about 10 years old, and we seek to be involved in the separate consultation the state wants to run with our First Nations community, considering the population representation we have in Swan Hill. So we're asking that council endorse this submission for us to submit to the Minister by the 30th of August.
Thank you, Ms Granger. Any questions? Councillor Kelly.
No, I don't have a question. I was going to move as...
A question, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, the submission's well written, Ms Granger. The only question I have, in cross-border significance, you refer to a catchment of 40,000, yet in health services you refer to 30,000. Wouldn't it be better to have some consistency there?
We will take that on board and make an amendment.
I have a question.
Councillor McPhee, any further questions?
No, that's it.
Councillor McKay.
I'd just like to venture that it could be, we've said 5,000 extra people, but the Robinvale Housing Study said there was at least 4,500 extra people, and that's not taking into account the rest of the municipality, and could it be amended to say 10,000 people, because our horticultural area is quite a vast migrant population.
So your question to Ms Granger?
Yes, could it be amended to say 10,000 extra people, because our Robinvale Housing Study said about 4,500 extra people in Robinvale itself,
And the horticultural industry that employs a very large migrant workforce extends right through Boundary Bend, Warraneen, Naya, and Swan Hill and Tresco area. So it is, we've had estimates before when we were asking.
Okay, I've taken your question. Just before you answer, Ms Granger, can I just ask a supplementary question relevant to that? Do we have any data to support that? Because obviously in Robin Vale we have the population study to support it. Do we have any data, whilst we may suspect significant extra people, do we have any data that can support that if we were questioned about it?
I think, I'm not sure that we have data, but I think we've made those assertions in our economic development strategy that we believe that the work that we've done in Robin Vale would have a similar impact in Swan Hill. So I think we have identified that in the strategy. So we could update our submission.
Great, just for consistency. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, Councillor Kelly, you wish to move it? Do I have a seconder for the motion?
Yeah.
Councillor McPhee, thank you. Councillor Kelly, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Look, I think this is an exceptional piece of work done by Council, and I'm really pleased that that we can submit it. I don't underestimate the amount of work that goes into preparing a submission like this. On top of the multiple submissions that are going on at the moment and requiring work by staff and community, it seems like every state and federal department wants a submission at the moment, or multiple submissions. So this is excellent. It comes at the end of the term of this council, and I think it's you know, a bit of a summary of some of the good work and finding of gaps and acknowledging both positives and challenges over the last 4 years. Not that I was part of it all, but that's my observation. So I think it shows the maturity of Swan Hill Rural City, that we can submit something like this, and I think having the attachments there to add weight to it is really good. So the significant work done was an excellent collaboration of the staff, directors, CEO, and input from councillors. So even though it was on a tight deadline, I think it's turned out very well.
Thank you. Councillor McPhee, you wish to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I'd like to congratulate your staff on putting this submission together. It has touched on all the issues affecting our municipality, and especially in relation to the cross-border connections. We are unique in that respect that we have no big town on the other side of us in New South Wales, where all the other communities along the river do. So we find ourselves giving services to the New South Wales people all the time, and we get no rates from them. So I think that's an important message, and I continue sending it to ministers in relation to that. And I think the other big point to take out of this is that Victoria is a very diverse place. We don't want this plan to be metro-centric. You've got to look at the regions and the rural communities, because you've got to cover everyone in this, which is going to make it a difficult plan to do, but it needs to be flexible in that relationship, because there are so many diversities within Victoria. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Are there any speakers against? Since I missed you last time, Councillor Young, I'll allow you to speak in favour of the motion, and then we'll put the motion. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I think sometimes we need to recognise with these different submissions and things we make into these different areas, we do already submit information rather than writing more letters to ministers about these issues, because they're all in a lot of these submissions anyway. So that's just a comment that I wanted to make.
Thank you, Councillor Young. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 2.3, review of 2024 Australia Day event to obtain community feedback. Director of Corporate Services, Mr Pratap.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report deals with the review of 2024 Australia Day events and making recommendation for the event of 2025 Australia Day. Council introduced the changes to 2024 Australia Day event, which included on the 25th of January, Mr Mayor, the Citizenship Award for both Robin Vale and Swan Hill. And then on 26th January, small town, they continued with the Australia Day event across the council local government area. The First Nations-led display, stories, images, and seeking, they sought funding to assist With the cost, which was granted, Mr. Mayor, Council also resolved to conduct a review of 2024 event to obtain community feedback. We called for the Let's Talk contribution from the members of the community. We received 77 contribution, which equals to around 1% of the local government area population, Mr. Mayor. The large percentage of respondents did not attend either the Australia Day event or the shared connection event in 2024. Opinions expressed were reflective that there were opinions on the changes made to the council. More so, they talked about the council not providing the barbecue on the Australia Day, Mr. Mayor, and the recommendation for this report, Mr. Mayor, is in three parts. Part one, continue with the same Australia Day celebration format in 2025. Second part is call for expression of interest from the community groups interested in holding a Australia Day event barbecue. And third part is the communication department will carry out a survey on the day of the event to capture the people who attended or who would be attending the Australia Day event. So I'll take the rest of the report as read, Mr. Mayor, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Patat. Noting that the results of the summary results of the survey are contained in a confidential attachment to councillors that has been provided. Councillor McPhee.
Question. That was going to be one of my questions. Why are the attachments confidential? What is the reason for hiding or keeping them confidential?
That was requested by the councillors at the Assembly, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, what was that? It was requested by council.
Council was discussed at Assembly, and due to the nature of and some of the survey results.
Why are we making it confidential? It's not up to council. Under what part of the act are we making it confidential?
Can you assist, Mr. Patat?
In the report. It does contain personal information, Councillor McPhee, the names of the respondents.
But supplementary question then, that being the case, couldn't we have just deleted the names of the respondents and at least give the response to the community to make them aware of what's going on? So being this was such a topical and political decision.
Redacted.
Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't spit it out. Thank you. Redacted version.
Yeah.
You able to?
We would be able to do it after the meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Pardon?
We can redact the name, but at this stage, the information attached in the confidential has got the names of the respondents.
So a redacted version could be included in the minutes of the meeting.
It can be, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
That'd be satisfactory, Councillor McPhee.
Yep. Okay. Another question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
In the report, it says if council will make wholesale changes to the program, this may lead to greater uncertainty and angst. It says, given that 2024 was the first year of the new format, if we were to make wholesale changes to this program, it may lead to greater uncertainty and angst. Why is that said in the report? It's caused a lot of angst to change we made this year.
Mr. Patat, sorry, which part? Sorry, Councillor
It's on
just
page
for
86 of our document.
Yes.
Or a couple of paragraphs down. It says,
yes.
I'll quote it. Given that the 2024 was the first year of the new format, if council will make wholesale changes to the program, this may lead to greater uncertainty and angst. Just asking why that was put in the report.
Yeah, look, Mr. Mayor, I'll take that on notice and I can provide a response at a later date.
And one final question, Mr. Mayor. Council established an internal Australia Day working group. Why weren't members of the water committee involved in this group?
There's two committees, Mr. Mayor. One is the First Nations group, which Jessica is leading the group, and the second group is the internal group that is formed by the Economic Development Events Coordination Group.
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. Burchett, but what I'm asking is, why weren't members of the wider community involved in that working group? Get some representation from the wider community.
As part of the working
As part of the working group.
As part of the working group, I can say that the representation from the wider community was the survey results that were brought back to that group were presented for consideration as input into this report, under the direction of this report.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly?
I'd like to move.
Yep, thank you. As per recommendation, Councillor Kelly, or do you have
No, I'd
something
like to make a slight adjustment to that. I've sent Sharon a sentence by email just about 10 minutes ago.
Is that there? Sorry.
Shall I wait?
Yeah, we'll just wait till we can put it up on the screen.
So it's just changing the first sentence. So it would read that Council 1, having considered community consultation, continue to support Australia Day celebrations in a generally similar format to 2024, and as requested, to make renewed efforts to encourage a community group to hold an Australia Day event in Swan Hill. And then it would continue the same dot points.
So that's to the first part. The second part is...
Sorry, Councillor Kelly, did you want the second part to become the first part?
I just want to take out the first sentence and replace it with mine, and then the dot points can go under mine, as they did. Yep.
Yep. And then there was a second part to
No.
your amendment. Of what?
No second part.
Oh, sorry, the encouraging community group. Sorry,
as-
that's in there as well.
Yeah, the rest can stay the same.
Sorry, I didn't know whether you wanted that put in the second part. That's okay. That's clear. Thank you.
Can I,
So, do I have a seconder for that motion?
can I ask a question?
What exactly is the amendment exactly?
It's just
Well,
saying,
it's-
The motion, with the changes?
So if you can read the original one.
Mr. Meakin, Councillor McKay wants to ask a question, but I'd like to ask a question as well.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead. Councillor McKay, go ahead. Well,
thank you. Last year, did the Robinvale community have an Australia Day event on Australia Day? Was there? Can anyone recall? I wasn't there. I was at Naya.
yes, there was a Robinvale Euston community breakfast
Yes.
held at the Euston Recreation Reserve.
Okay. Well, I'd like, when this amendment has been...
No, it's not
It's
an
not an
amendment.
amendment.
It's
Oh
a
no,
motion.
when this
To change the
motion is,
motion.
we're looking for a seconder, I just don't think it's acknowledged in here that that event will also continue as it has, because it says in this one, the Robinvale event will be determined by local First Nations people, but that Robinvale also had an Australia Day event of Robinvale Euston Business Community.
So I would deem it to be covered in the at the start of the motion where it says in generally the same format as 2024, or words to that generally similar format to 2024.
Yes, but
As
we
Australia Day celebrations, because that's talking about the whole municipality. The dot point down the bottom, the Robinvale event refers to the Shared Connections events, because it's specifically mentioned about Swan Hill Riverside Park, and then
Yes.
the Robinvale. So that might need to, perhaps what you're asking is, should that say the Robinvale Shared Connections event?
Yeah, could
will
I?
be
Because
determined
because it's my motion,
yes,
I'll put in there.
Shared Connections
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
and
Does that clarify, Councillor McKay?
yes, but also I think it should acknowledge in the second dot point, the Robinvale ceremony will take place at the Robinvale Performing Arts Centre to the end, Performing Arts Centre in the evening. It should also acknowledge, and Robinvale Euston Business Association will run their event as per normal, because it just doesn't acknowledge these. We've actually listed all the events that occurred, and it makes it sound as if there will be a First Nations only event, and it doesn't acknowledge that the Reba event did happen and will continue to happen if they run it.
Are you happy to include that as part of your motion?
I'm not sure it's necessary because we haven't listed all the Australia Day breakfasts that happened, which there were several of them. So if we list one, we probably need to list them all, which I think is superfluous to requirements.
So, Councillor McPhee, you had a question of Councillor Kelly?
A question in relation to the proposed motion. Part 2, calling for expressive interest from community groups is a great idea, but what happens to the student awards that are always given out at those breakfasts? Is that where we include that? Like they're given out at all the small towns, rather than the night before the release of student awards. I agree wholeheartedly that maybe the citizen of the year could be announced before, gives that citizen an opportunity to go wherever they want, wherever they choose. But I'm just saying about to have some sort of ceremony at the Australia Day celebration that's held in Swan Hill. Can we consider putting the student awards on if there's going to be a breakfast held in Swan Hill?
I think cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay. So last year's event, the student awards were given the option to either do it the night before at the town hall or Rottenvale event, and they can also choose to have that done in their hometown, their Lake Boga, Nye West, wherever, if they choose to do on Australia Day.
Yeah, but they do that on Australia Day in those small towns now. The Lake Boga student gets an award at Nye, at Lake Boga. The Nye primary school get their award at Nye. I'm talking about the schools in Swan Hill, their community in Swan Hill.
Yep. So last year, yes, they were given out on the 25th, the night before Australia Day, at the ceremony. So what you're suggesting is to include the.
Well, consideration.
Yeah, whilst it's not,
you're having a breakfast, and yeah.
Whilst it's not specifically written, as Sharon pointed out, that flexibility was there last year, and in fact there were some awards that were presented outside of specific events, and mutually agreed times and places were made with students so that they could receive their awards in some way, shape or form. So whilst it's not specifically written, I don't know whether there's a way we can, whether you want to play with the words to make it more general, but
as long as we've got the intent there, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Right, so motion's on the screen. Do I have a seconder for that motion? If not,
yes, I'm happy to second it, but I'd still like to mention the kind of small
well,
towns.
hang on. We've had that discussion, so the motion is there.
Okay, I'll second it.
You'll second it as it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Kay. Councillor Kelly, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. It's good to get this report back. We have wanted to hear the feedback from the community. That was really important to gather that. Making these changes is a big thing, but Council, we are committed to improving the way we do things and catering to our whole community. I take very seriously the feedback that we were given, and I've thought about it a lot. I don't think it was all accurate, but I totally acknowledge people's feelings about it. A fuller discussion of the whole thing could be had in some respect to understand more about people's understandings and positions, because just looking at social media and doesn't really engender a good community discussion or understanding of different opinions. But regardless of that, it's really important event that we've had, and traditionally really I mean, for the whole of Australia, it's an important event. And I think the way that we are changing it, you know, we're improving. We may not have done everything totally correctly this year, but next year, with the tweaking that we're doing, hopefully there'll be more clarity and the event will go off well. I have been both a volunteer and an attender of the breakfast over the years, and I was also very sad that it came to an end, but it did, as things do, things change. So the new way of doing it I like. I attended the evening ceremony and it was fabulous, and I think the community will, if they do attend it, they will like it. We'll probably fill the town hall, because the things we celebrate on that night are the people and the volunteers and the efforts and the outstanding service people give, and so it is something to definitely celebrate. The citizenship ceremonies are also very significant for people, but to be able to, you know, we have the highest percentage of Aboriginal people in our community, 4.5% for the whole of Victoria. That is significant. It isn't nothing. And balancing the needs of everyone in our community is part of our leadership role. And I'm really proud to be part of a council that's doing that, and it's not easy. It's not easy to make change, but that we're doing it. So yeah, the most important thing is that there's harmony and understanding, and I hope we can work more at doing that by the communications that we offer to the community and the early and clear communication that we do, because where there's misunderstanding, that's when things can go awry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McKay, you wish to speak?
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to acknowledge that it was the celebrations that we had were a way, there were more offerings put on, made available to the community by council, and that was good, and it was really a great addition. The evening event was really fantastic, and it just made it more, it was made sense on a practical level for the Mayor and other people to be able to participate and give due time to the people receiving awards. There were many people cried tears because of how beautiful the ceremony was, but also I think it was a more comfortable environment for many people, on being summer. However, I would very strongly like it to be recognised that Council itself did not stop the Australia Day breakfast. This is misinformation. It was put out as being available to any community group who wanted to take up the funding and run that event. It was simply a matter that the committee that had run the event was not willing or able to keep running that event. But hopefully, we're hopeful, given that the community has expressed wish to have that event on in Riverside Park on Australia Day, that another community group will run that event. And there was certainly no effort on Council to stop that event going ahead. In fact, Council facilitated and encouraged people to take up the running of that event, but it is quite a big thing to take on, and we do understand that it takes a lot of consideration for a group to take it on, but we think that it will probably go ahead. And I think that the way that the events were run this year just gave the option for everyone to participate in the way that they wanted, and that was really good. And for someone such as a councillor who has to attend multiple events, it certainly was easier to achieve that across a geographic region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Before they put the motion, Mr Mayor, can I ask, the fact that it is so emotive and so political, can others speak for the motion as well?
Yeah, I'm happy to accept that. So, if you'd like to speak for the motion, Councillor Jeffrey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really welcome the report that has come forward today, and I wanted to touch on what Councillor McKay touched on as well. that we know the previous Australia Day event that was held in Swan Hill was run by. Just wanted to touch on the point, sorry, microphone on, that Councillor McKay touched on earlier around there was a committee that ran the Australia Day breakfast in Swan Hill for over 40 years that, due to the lack of time and the inability to find a coordinator, as well as some desires from within this council to make it a different event, to tweak it in some aspects led to that cessation. But we did, as a council, go out for expressions of interest for a community group to run the breakfast, had no uptake, and unfortunately that meant that council went ahead with the two events that they did run on the 25th and the 26th, and no community breakfast in Swan Hill. That gave the people that wanted to attend the breakfast the ability to do so in Swan Hill. I know I've spoken to a few members of a couple of different community groups in Swan Hill that would be interested now in doing it, which is good, and would really strongly encourage them to get in contact if this motion is carried, to look at what options and what we can do to give people the ability that want to attend a breakfast in Swan Hill the choice to celebrate in that way. And I have always been in favour of that, and we've always thought that, but it hasn't led to that in the past. But I think it's a good move forward, and I really look forward to the ability for people in Swan Hill to celebrate how they choose to celebrate Australia Day, because it is an option. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor McPhee.
Well, thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say, as a council, Australia Day, you listen to our national anthem that says, "We are one." Is it council's role to get involved in doing this? I think this should be individual councils are starting to do things differently in every council. I think it should be something that the federal government needs to stand up and address this issue one way or the other. In saying that, listening to the or reading all the responses in the surveys, that being very little, I'm sure every councillor around this room or every member in this room, every person watching, has had people complain about the way it was run last year. I think this is a step forward in relation to actually giving a community group the opportunity to run the breakfast, not in the format it was, but in the format the small communities run. And I think that's an appropriate thing. And with the $20,000 in the budget for the funding, I certainly hope it is funded equally. Also, some of the comments in relation to the survey commented on there's a number of different nationalities and cultures within our region. There are many, well over 50 I believe. That being said, I do believe the Aboriginal culture does need to be celebrated a little different, because our culture, the English culture and the Aboriginal culture, are the two cultures that were developed in this country. So I think they are a little bit different to the other cultures around. So I have no issues in celebrating them in some way, by all means. But I think we need to be very careful how far we go down the track in relation to this. We don't want the federal government stepping on our toes. They should be making a decision, I think, Australia-wide, to make us one. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee, for your passionate words. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 2.4, key service indicators for the fourth quarter report. Mr Patel.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Section 90 of the Local Government Act 2020 requires Council to develop and adopt a 4-year plan. Our current plan was adopted on 26th of October 2021. This report provides a review of the fourth quarter of the Council plan. Council identifies 4 pillars: that's livability, prosperity, harmony and leadership. Plan identifies 110 action items. The intent of this report is to give councillors and the community confidence that the Council is on track to meet the published commitment. In accordance with Section 90 of the Local Government Act 2020, Council developed and adopted 4-year Council plan on 26th of October 2021. The detailed progress report is attached from page 94 onwards, Mr Mayor. The report, the recommendation that the Council adopts 2023-24 fourth quarter Council plan progress report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tapp. Any questions of Mr. Tapp? Councillor McPhee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it's pleasing to see that there's none of them that haven't started progress in relation to this whole report. But on our agenda, page 112 of number 3.1.5.4, develop a building safer communities program. It's in planning. The comment is awaiting suitable funding as a criteria has changed. Are we waiting the funding for planning, or is it actually in planning?
Sorry, can you just say the dot point again?
3.1.5.4.
Thank you. Mr. Patak, are you able to
just give us a
answer
second,
that?
Mr. Mayor.
Bruce, you'd like to answer that?
Yeah,
Mr. Nice?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McPhee, this particular round of funding, when the council plan was developed, the intent of this was for the Justice Department's Safer Communities Fund, which has changed considerably over the years. So in the past, that fund has enabled things such as improvements to taxi ranks, lighting, CCTV, improving areas of community safety in different towns. So the intent of this item was to have a list, so when the grants became available, we would be able, as officers, we would be able to recommend what we should be applying for. But over the last 12 to 18 months, those grants, what used to be called Safer Communities, have changed their format through the Department of Justice. So my understanding is that's why it's still in progress. Officers didn't want to see it drop off the list because it is still a valid thing to do, but there hasn't been any significant updates to the grant that was intended for.
Just a follow-up question, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor. You said develop a building and safe community program. You're saying you're waiting suitable funding. So has the program been developed?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor McPhee, no. A short list, probably about 18 months, 2 years ago, a short list of potential projects was pulled together by myself, but it hasn't been pushed any further because there were no available funds. The idea, as I said, was to have a list of things that came up from different communities in different parts of town, or reports from the police, or catch-ups from different community groups, and identify those as potential grant applications. But yeah, so there is a list, but it's not officially on the books or anything. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Nice. Yep, Councillor Kelly.
I just had one question. I just had one question about an item on page 107, 2.1.2.4. The action is to develop a strategic plan for future success of the Pioneer Settlement, and it says it's in planning. I just wondered why we have to wait any further. It says we're waiting for approval once confirmed. So can it just be clarified when that will actually kick off?
Ms. Gwenda?
Yeah, so we will kick off that once a tender has been awarded for the Cultural and Tourism Hub, and we then have certainty that that building is going to commence, and that's when we will do that review, commence that review, because that will change the whole way we operate the settlement.
Okay. And is that weeks away or months?
We would be hoping that the tender is ready September, October, so we would be hoping to start the review prior to the end of the year.
Yep. And does it involve getting a consultant, or?
We will lead it in-house, but we may need to buy in some expertise for certain elements of the strategy.
Yep. Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, can I have a motion? Councillor Jeffrey?
As per the recommendation.
As per recommendation, thank you. Seconded, Councillor McPhee. You wish to speak, Councillor Jeffrey?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, with respect to it, it is a great quarterly report that gives anyone in the community a pretty easy way to understand where council are at with the items identified in the council plan that's been adopted. It gives any potential councillors or candidates that are looking to run for council an idea of what goes into the council plan for the upcoming elections, and ideas that they look forward to bringing to the table. So thank the staff for the work that goes into updating it, as well as getting all the items, as Councillor McPhee they're simply all in progress or underway or completed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor McPhee, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I'd like to congratulate the staff on the job they're doing in relation to this. There's approximately 110 actions within this council plan, and they've all started, which is great to see. That's a big workload over the 4 years of a council plan, and to see that there are some completed, and a lot of them are ongoing, and that puts a lot of work. And it's just a good benchmark to just ensure that the CEO is directing his staff in the right way, that the community, it's a council plan, but the community input from this point forward. Last year there was a lot of community input into it's a community plan, basically we call it a council plan, and it's just making sure that they're accountable to the community in completing all those actions. So I'd like to thank all the staff in all the different areas for the work that they do in relation to completing the council plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Any speakers against the motion? If not, I will put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 2.5, the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities Policy. Mr Patat.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report deals with the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibility Policy, Mr Mayor. There's minor changes recommended, and I'll take this report as read, Mr Mayor. Recommendation is that Council adopts the recommended changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? If not, can I have a motion?
Motion.
Councillor McPhee, thank you. Seconder. Councillor Jeffrey, thank you. Wish to speak to the motion, Councillor McPhee?
I'll just say it's a policy that we're just updating, and very little change to that policy, and it's about keeping them updated, making sure that they are current.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey? Anybody wish to speak against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. 2.6, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation. Mr Patat.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Council have now appointed 2 new planners to the development team, and this report deals with the appointment and authorisation of the 2 planners. Recommendation, Mr Mayor, that the Council appoint Mr Utbik Muli and Mr Mohammed Salman as authorised officers as set out in the attached instruments to resolve the instrument take effect upon signing and sealing and remain in force until varied or revoked. The third parties sign and seal the instrument as soon as possible, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Patat. Any questions, councillors? Councillor McPhee?
Yeah, Mr Patat, I see that the CEO can delegate certain things, but our solicitors are suggesting that we do this delegation.
That's correct, Mr Mayor.
That being the case, under the instrument of appointment of authorisation, the instrument, the delegation, remains in force until varied or revoked. What has happened to previous planners that have been given this authorisation? Shouldn't that come back to council to revoke them? If the solicitors are saying we should implement it, why shouldn't we revoke them?
We'll take that question on notice, Mr Mayor, and I'll provide the information by way of email.
Thank you.
Happy with that, Councillor McPhee? Yep. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, can I have a motion?
Yeah.
Moved as per recommendation. Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Seconder? Councillor Jeffrey, thank you. Do you wish to speak? Councillor McPhee?
Just quickly, Mr Mayor, this just makes the planners given the opportunity to ensure that the business of council continues smoothly.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey? No? Any speakers against? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 2.7, Road Gazettal Amendment. Ms O'Dwyer.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is a procedural report that seeks approval to proceed with a gazettal of a proposed road realignment for a subdivision at 180 Greeny Street. In October 2021, Council approved a report regarding a road deviation from Macaro Road and a land exchange to facilitate an industrial development. This involved the discontinuance of the existing road alignment for Macaro Road and the creation of a new road aligned with the subdivision plan at 180 Greeny Street. This new road was officially gazetted in December 2021. The developer now requests a realignment of the gazetted road, moving it 10.67 metres west of its current planned location to fit a revised subdivision plan. The developer reasons this change in road alignment is needed due to market-driven loud adjustments of lot sizes, a potential conflict with the sewer manhole, and the site preparations made by the developer, such as fencing and topsoil removal. The intention of this request, if approved, will be carried out in accordance with Schedule 10 of the Local Government Act 1989. Then the revised plan will then also need to include a stormwater easement for council to protect an existing stormwater rising main, as well as a reserve to allow Lower Murray water access to the infrastructure situated on a small parcel of land previously located adjacent to the original Macaro Street. Updated subdivision plans which have been submitted to council do show these requirements. Council consent is requested to allow the realignment of the recently gazetted road, and it's recommended that council proceed with the request from the developer to gazette the proposed road alignment, recover all associated costs to council of the gazettal process from the developer, and ensure that the approved subdivision plans for the development provide stormwater easement for council's stormwater rising main and a reserve that will allow Lower Murray water access to their infrastructure.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? If not, can...
I'll move as per recommendation.
As per recommendation, Councillor Jeffrey. Seconder, Councillor Young. Councillor Jeffrey, you wish to speak?
Yeah, just briefly, I thank the Acting Director for bringing the report and appreciate the work that has gone in by the developer. Obviously a few changes, and since 2021 market has changed, so which has resulted in their approach to council to have the road moved and re-gazetted, etc. So if this is what the developer needs to undertake to meet market demand and get the blocks rezoned and up for sale, then that's a good outcome for Swan Hill. So I fully support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Young, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I was just going to say, I think this is a minor change to what was in place before, and it does account for the drainage and everything that's in connection to this development. So I'm quite happy to second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Do we have any speakers against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Section 3, Officer Reports for Noting. We have none. Whoops. Section 4, Decisions which need action ratification. 4.1, Councilor Assemblies, record of attendance and agenda items. CEO.
Yes, through you, Mayor. This really is just a procedural report to record councillor attendance and agenda items at assemblies. The recommendation is to note the contents of the report.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors?
But sorry, number 3, office report.
So now we're on number 4.
Record of attendance and agenda items.
No, sorry.
4.1.
Yeah, 1, sorry, 2 headings.
Yes,
yeah.
sorry. No questions, can I have a motion? Councillor McKay, as per recommendation. Second to Councillor Moore. Do you wish to speak? Councillor McKay?
No.
No? Councillor Moore? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Section 5, Notices of Motion. 5.1, Reopening the Swan Hill Drag Strip. Councillor Moore, would you like to read all or part of your motion?
I'll probably read it all for the sake of those listening.
Thank you.
I, Councillor Moore, move that a report be brought to Council at the September 2024 meeting in consideration of the following. That Council reopen the former drag strip site, referred to here as the facility, following the negotiation and entering into a mutually agreeable and acceptable 3-year lease with the Skid City Consortium. The lease agreement shall include, but not limited to, the following. 1. Providing access to and usage of the facility for sanctioned events only. Providing access to and usage of areas common to all motorplex users. Acceptance of the existing conditions of the facility and associated defined areas and infrastructure facilities. A waiver of any current or ongoing legal liability of the Swan Hill Rural City Council in relation to the facility. A memorandum of understanding between Skid City and other Swan Hill motorplex user groups. Provision for subletting of the facility for other users, subject to council approval. Cooperative participation in council's strategic planning process for the Swan Hill motorplex. No requirements for any financial commitment of council. The organisation shall be permitted to undertake capital upgrades and or improvements to the track and or facilities at their own expense, subject to council approval. Council agrees in principle to support any applications by the organisation for external funding for improvements or expansion, subject to council's normal processes for such.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Before I ask for a seconder, I will ask if any councillors have any questions they wish to ask of Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, Skid City Consortium, is that a business or a community group?
It's not a community group, it's a business.
It's a business, so it's a commercial entity. Another question. Oh, thank you. Apologies. The question I asked was, is Skid City a commercial entity or a community group or a not-for-profit organisation?
It's a commercial entity as far as I am aware.
Right. The other question that I had was, we did have Skid City or a group of people present to us at an assembly, and they said they would be a non-profit organisation. So I'm presuming there's been some change.
I said, as far as I'm aware, they're a private group. Now, they may not make any profits, and I suspect they probably won't make any profits over a time, but that's up to them.
Yeah. And do we have any documentation? It says it's supported with the support of the Swan Hill Drag Racing Club. Have we had any letters or information to say?
Right here, this is a letter of support. So it's a report to council.
That came to the assembly?
Yes.
Thank you. In that document that they brought to us, they were interested in managing, running or working at the drag strip for 1 year while we undertook the strategic plan, but that seems to have changed. Is that correct?
Yes, on the grounds that any changes that need to take place. We'll leave the response for the debate. The question was about 1 year, and the motion's proposing 3.
Great.
Yep.
I would like to suggest an amendment.
Hang on, I'll take further questions and see whether I've got a seconder before we get to that point. Thank you. Councillor Kelly. Sorry, Councillor Jeffrey was first. Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey.
A couple of questions around so there's a 3-year lease mentioned in the motion. At the previous council meeting, we requested a strategic review. Have we got a date of when that is ideally planned to be finished by and presented? Is 3 years ties in with that strategic review?
You have a comment, Ms. Winter?
Yeah, the strategic review is about to go out to tender. We would imagine it will take us approximately 12 months to complete that and then bring it back to council.
Okay. Question on the last part of the opening statement, which is the lease agreement shall include, but not limited to, and to the dot point on a memorandum of understanding between Skid City and the other Swan Hill Motorplex user groups. Is it likely that a lease agreement could contain a memorandum of understanding between Skid City and all the Motorplex user groups within the 4 weeks we've got to bring the lease agreement back to council meeting in September?
What we will do is bring back a report that deals with that motion, and we'll look at that issue as to whether that's feasible. We're not proposing to bring you back a lease in 4 weeks' time.
Yep. Thank you. I meant a report, but I said lease, so I appreciate that. That's all I've got at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you. My question is, it's not usual for council to vet potential lessees, which we're proposing. This proposal is to lease the drag strip to the consortium. So my question is to the CEO or officers, when has council ever been the body to choose the lessee for a property of council's? So we have a lot of leases. Usually the staff do the choosing and the proper process of expressions of interest, etc. There's rules to abide by. So when has it ever happened like this? Is there another time that it's ever happened like this?
Again, the process that we go through for leasing and whether or not this motion accords with that will be something that we consider in the report we bring back to council. And we can also have a look at what has been the history of previous leases. That's something we haven't contemplated.
Yeah. So we don't know if this has ever happened before. Is that? I mean, I always like to know. Okay, where's the precedent for this? So if that could come back to council, that would be great.
Again, yes, that will come back in the report in a month's time.
Yeah. And my other question was, will doing this report and then possibly doing this lease to the consortium, what effect will that have on the strategic plan that we're doing?
Again, I would take up the approach that this report is separate and we will continue to work on the tender for the strategic plan. That won't be put on hold for this process. And I think, again, we will cover off the detail on those issues and as part of the report that comes back to address the notice of motion.
Okay. And the third one was in this document that that Councillor Moore just referred to, it does say it's a not-for-profit, so there's some lack of clarity there. But my question is, on the page that refers to the drag racing club, there's some typed words, but it's not a letter, it's not an email, it's just some typed words with a date and some words and the name of the secretary, but there's no signature, so the validity of that is questionable and it doesn't hold, I don't rate that as being an appropriate document for a council to consider. So I want to see an actual document from the drag racing club that has a signature. Is this all that we have?
There's two documents that we're furnished with on the day.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, the thin one, has the letter from the drag club, the full transcript in it.
Oh, sorry. On page...
The thin document that were handed on the day of the assembly, the briefing.
Sorry?
The second document that were handed on the day of the assembly contained a letter from the drag club.
Yep, on page...
Right, the page numbers aren't in it, but it's approximately page...
Mine has page numbers.
The other document.
The small one?
Yes, that one.
Has a signed letter?
6, page 7 I would suggest it possibly is.
Is that a signed letter?
There's no actual,
you mean that?
There's no digital signature. Yes, that's it. Yeah,
yeah.
It's signed, but it's not. There's no digital signature on it. That's
well, look, I'm not a lawyer, but that doesn't hold weight for me.
I think the point is that will the report be able to contain a signed letter? I think that will clarify.
Yeah.
That will clarify. Thank you, Councillor Young. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say similar to that. This is not making a decision. This is only about bringing back a report. So we're not making decisions.
Yeah,
exactly.
I had one more question. This may not be making a decision, but by bringing back a report, that's going to require the finances. So what kind of cost will it be to council to prepare this report? Question to the CEO. Acting CEO.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. When council became aware of this notice of motion, I have actually had discussions with the team. A lot of the information we believe that we probably do already have. So we don't think it will be too onerous for officers to be able to be in a position to bring information back. And then obviously through that assembly process with councillors, we can actually have further discussion as regards to if any additional information is required at that time.
And how many assemblies are between now and the next council ordinary meeting?
3.
2 or 3, I have to confirm that, Councillor Kelly, because we are looking at as to whether or not one of those assemblies will be required.
Yeah.
Depends on the number of agenda items.
Thanks.
All right, do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Young?
Can I
I'll second the motion.
I wanted
Thank
to.
you.
Yes.
Councillor McKay, yes, I'm aware. I'm aware.
Sorry.
I'm not ignoring you. I'm just getting things in order here. You would like to propose an amendment?
Yes, I'd just like to suggest and ask Councillor Moore if it's possible to insert at the beginning that prior to the words that a report be brought to council, I would like it to say the sentence following genuine consultation with user groups of the Swan Hill Motorplex. That a report. It can be
I would
rejected,
think
but
that would be part of the report for sport to council.
it doesn't say it specifically, and I think it should, because we know that unless things say it specifically, they don't have to happen. It
Well,
doesn't say it.
if we have to have community consultation, that's part of the report. I'm not trying to subvert due
I
process.
didn't think you were.
We just need to go through due process. The report will tell us whether we need to have community consultation or not, because that is an expensive process in itself.
Okay. So
do
you
you
don't
wish to accept the amendment?
Or
Councillor
not?
No, I
Moore?
don't accept the amendment.
So you don't accept the amendment?
Do you wish to move an amended motion, Councillor McKay?
No, I
No?
don't want to move it. It's not my motion.
So I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Moore has moved. Councillor Young has seconded the motion. Councillor Moore, you have your 5 minutes to present your debate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, as the historical perspective, firstly, Council resolved at its December meeting in 2023 to close the drag strip, and that's thanks to Councillor McKay's input, and it was a very well thought out motion that enables us to actually get to this position right now. But since that resolution was made and subsequently publicised, Council has received several parties. Council has received approaches from several parties who expressed an interest. Now, this was beyond my wildest dreams, because I thought we had a white elephant out there. But it turns out that there are many parties that were interested, and subsequently to do that, following a resolution at the June meeting, Council heard submissions from 2 of these interested parties and a third interested party which fully supported one of those for use of the drag strip site. Both of these submissions related to properly sanctioned motorsport events. The motion now seeks to reopen the former drag strip site and prepare a lease agreement with one of the interested parties, the Skid City Group, who have the support and endorsement of the Swan Hill Drag Racing Incorporated. Whilst the main proposed conditions of the lease agreement are outlined in the motion, it is anticipated that in the development of the agreement that Council's risk and liability will be minimised to the greatest extent possible. And Skid City have outlined that this is also their intent, and they accept the current conditions of the site. This has been a sticking point all along. The liability and where the transfer of liability and who takes the risk and where does it lie. So under these conditions and with sanctioned events and the insurances and everything else that's put in place, and it's part of the report as well, we'll consider all of those things, that we actually, in the words of one of our officers, ratchet down our potential liability to the minimal, absolute minimal extent, in fact to zero, I'm hoping. No events can be undertaken without the express consent of the relevant motorsport sanctioning body. Now, this will mean that they say the event is okay. So that means risk is transferred to them because they say it's fine, everything's fine and everything can happen. Skid City have proposed capital investment into the site with no financial contribution from Council, a willingness to participate in the strategic planning for the Swan Hill Motorplex and to work with other motorplex user groups for the betterment of the motorsport in the region. This is no ratepayer funds required. We know that drag racing is a very popular sport. It's a high-end motorsport with high net worth individuals involved, and that potential here, we have that ability to tap into it in this lease agreement. This motion allows for the re-establishment of events at the former drag strip site, whilst the strategic planning work is undertaken and an action plan developed. Now, considerable expense and time will be taken to get to this point, and probably a good 12 months just to get to the point where they can actually do some things there, apart from the burnout events which could take place and have been taking place already out there. Re-establishment of the events at the drag strip site, it's not just drag racing now. We're talking multiple events at this site, and potentially we could have events out there, very regular events just at that particular part, the former drag strip site, not just drag racing, but burnouts. We provide an outlet for people. I don't know whether you know where the unofficial burnout site is in around Swan Hill, but there's burnouts quite regularly happening, illegally, unsanctioned. Someone's going to get hurt. There's an outlet right here in town, and it'll attract people from other regions. This is an outcome that just 6 months ago was inconceivable. This motion provides a pathway for the utilisation of a disused asset, and I'm calling it a white elephant, unless we do something now. More events for motorsport enthusiasts and capital investment without ratepayer funds, all with the support of the Swan Hill Drag Racing Club. What is the cost? Was asked the question, what is the cost of forming lease? What is the cost if we don't do anything, councillors? Let's have a crack, let's have a go, let's get this report and see what we need to do to progress this, and make this motorplex a really, truly international site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Young, you should speak to the motion.
I'd just like to back up what Councillor Moore has just said. After having sat through multiple meetings with the drag strip committee and other people that have been involved with this over many years, I'm just excited and pleased to see that it's now moving into another phase, because it's time. Absolutely time that this happened for this region in terms of economic return, hospitality, accommodation, retail. It could lead to the industry being set up, different industries being set up to support the drag initiative. So it is really exciting, and there's a lot of events now being proposed. So the fact that it's supported by the original drag strip committee is a big, huge plus to the whole development. Also, it alleviates the financial commitment and the legal liability of council if it's done in the right way and before we get to the end of the whole process. And the fact that it allows extension to many, many other activities and opportunities is something that we can't knock it back. We have to go with it. And also, as I've said previously in the Assembly, when this was originally brought up, all around Australia there was things that came in from everywhere saying that Swan Hill was an ideal location for the whole initiative in terms of the geographical location, its central location, distance in terms from other areas including South Australia, Melbourne, other locations, and also even far away locations like Darwin and places like that. We're talking really favourably about the Swan Hill location. So I'm just happy to see it happening, and because it's got a report and an action plan now attached to this, I just want to see it go ahead as soon as we can do it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. How many speakers against the motion?
No, sorry. 4.
You like? Yep.
Just.
4 or against the
I'll
council?
speak against the motion, Mr Mayor.
Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, look, first of all, I'd like to, I understand the passion of the drag club and Skid City. I'd like to acknowledge that one of the representatives of Skid City actually took the time to come and talk to me personally, and I commend him for that passion, that interest in doing the best for this facility. He brought to my attention that my intention was to close the facility. It is not to close the facility at all. I would like the facility soon. Council has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this facility. We need to do something about it, and we need to do something. But we need to do it in a proper process. As Councillor Moore said, we had several people involved, interested in doing something out there. We're bringing a report back on one person. You say the information in relation to this report, the acting CEO said most of it is here already in council, so it won't be a great expense. But the expense is we're going out to a consultant to have a review done as well. We've asked for a review of the facility. like I said previously, we are putting the cart before the horse in relation to this. The review is, as Ms Green said, taken approximately 12 months. This lease that Councillor Moore is proposing, or the report to propose, a 3-year lease, is going to put it well outside that. So where does a review fit into this whole process? Council under the Local Government Act, we have tender and procurement processes we must follow. We must be fair to all interested parties. This is not being fair to all interested parties. We are picking one party. There's no fairness in that, councillors. That is one of our council plans, one of our main principles. It's about fairness. Read your council plan. This is not being fair when we're treating one person better than anyone else. So, with all due respect to Skid City, they may be able to do a wonderful job out there. And if down the track that works, I would fully support them taking that role on. But not at the process we're going through now. Just consider what's in your council plan, the principles in the council plan. One of them is fairness. We are not being fair. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Speakers in favour of the motion. Councillor Jeffrey?
Before I speak, just in the regards to the typo that's in the document assembly, we've got bought on the screen, or should be bought.
Thank you.
Before we move the motion to its vote. Yep, vote on it. Speaking in favour of it, I'm keen to see what the report will recommend in regards to the ability of council to release the drags inside of the facility to. Keen to see a report brought to see the feasibility regarding the option to lease the facility of the facility of the drag strip site to the Skid City Consortium. I do hold ongoing concerns, and the report should consider the ability for the track to be prevented from maintaining, which the geotechnical data and reports we've had indicate that it's highly unlikely to be achieved, regardless of whether it's ratepayers or private investment undertaking that, as well as the ability to absolve any legal liability from council and essentially the ratepayers if something did occur out there. So, happy to see a report, but the considerations still need to be weighed upon heavily around whether council could ever be absolved of full legal liability, regardless of what occurred on the site and who says they do or don't have coverage. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Any speakers against? Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I'll speak against. I think the questions I asked show the concerns I have. One of our main roles on council is to protect council, to look after our finances, and I feel like going outside our normal process like this makes me concerned. We're making a lot of presumptions in the things that some things in this report say, presumptions that it's all going to be splendid and, you know, reap lots of money, but I think we're here to be cautious and, you know, dangling a carrot in front of us can sometimes make us not see things that we should be cautious of. So I would prefer that our staff weren't having to take time to do this work. We've got a lot of other work to do, and this will take time. It already has taken time, and it will take more time and more finances to seek more legal opinion, etc. And I feel like not having an expressions of interest. There were many parties interested, it's been said. So why didn't we do an expression of interest and give everyone a chance? And that, because we didn't do that, we may not get the best outcome for the community. We may, but if we had done the process normally, we may have we may still have Skid City coming in as the one who we lease it to, but by not doing the due process, it makes me very worried.
Thank you, Councillor Coe. Have any other speakers? Motion, Councillor McKay.
Indeed, I did pass the motion that we conduct a strategic review, and that it was recommended, I think, by staff that the facility be closed. We also had another proposal that we gift the drag strip to a group. I was uncomfortable with either of those options, mainly with the concern for the other users, and that there be varying uses within that facility that's used by varying different community groups, most of which give us not one iota of trouble or bother or cost. And so my main concern was I didn't really think that it was the end date for that facility, and I do believe it does have a future. They've put a lot of work. I'm confused about how the ownership of the different parts of what's being put into the drag strip will be navigated by the potential leasee. However, I would be more inclined to support this motion if I knew that the other user groups would be consulted, and I feel that we'll have a motion, a report with a decision put before us within 4 weeks with only 2 assemblies, and I don't believe there's the commitment or the time to discuss with the other user groups there, and that was the whole point of having a strategic review, was just to ensure that the whole facility could move forward potentially with a commercial person operating the drag strip, which I would have been in favour of. But I'm uncertain here about not following the correct process of having an open to anyone to put in a bid. I'm also concerned that Skid City originally, my understanding was of the documents was that they were looking to have a user agreement to use the facility for drags for a year, and I would have been more comfortable with that because it was still open for another party to, but they also would have proved themselves as being, good to work with for the other users over that year. But this locks them in, this potential report locks them into 3 years, and without undermines any review and plan going forward. So I have my concerns, but I would like it on the record that I am not against a commercial entity, and I'm quite encouraged that there's someone interested. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Councillor Moore, you have the right of reply.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The process and the report will address fairness and equity issues, proper process. We're not subverting any of them. We just need some action to get things happening. Otherwise, we're just kicking the can down the road in typical bureaucratic fashion. Let's just expedite things. Let's get things happening. As I said, the report will address all these things that we need to address, and to address all the concerns as councillors have outlined here today. Councillor Jeffrey's point about the reports, part of that, I would suspect part of the condition reports that we've had done would be furnished to the Skid City group so they know exactly what they're getting. They, in fact, might decide to rip the damn thing up and start again. So we don't know what they will do, but they have the financial wherewithal and the technical expertise, which obviously we have never had in the big house when this got built. They have got it, and they can do these repairs at their expense. That's why there's a 3-year lease proposal. It might be a 1 by 1 by 1. It might be a 2 by 1 or a straight 3 year. I don't know, but the report will address that, and that's subject to negotiation. As I said, we're not trying to subvert due process or decrease anybody's fairness and equity or access to this. But this group appear to be very professional and very well equipped to do what council couldn't achieve, was never possible to achieve, either with finance or with expertise within the big house. And I do believe we probably don't, we may have that expertise now, but we didn't then, and we shouldn't be a part of it anyway. Ongoing, and in the future, this group, because of their expertise, the whole motor complex will benefit from this. And as far as the strategic review and their cooperation within it, we could possibly be putting in place a major participant of of that complex. So with very professional attitudes, and we could have a magnificent complex out there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. With all the debate had, I will now put the motion. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried.
Can we have a division, please?
Yep, call for division. Thank you. Those in favour of the motion? Are you ready? Just catching up with the... Those in favour, Councillor King, Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Moore and Councillor Young. Those against? Councillor McKay, Councillor Kelly, Councillor McPhee. The motion is carried.
Mr Mayor, can I move the suspend standing orders for 10-minute rest break?
Yes, we have a second. Do you want to second that?
I'll second.
Second it?
Yeah.
Thank you. All in favour? That's carried. I'll adjourn the meeting for a 10-minute break.
10 minutes? Yep.
10-minute break.
Thank you.
Councillors, if you just remain seated until we're off the live stream.
Live stream. I thought we weren't live stream.
Or better.
Thank you, councillors, officers and members of the public. Councillor Jeffrey, can I just have your motion to resume?
I'll have to move the resume.
Thank you. Second for that. Councillor McPhee. Those in favour? Motion is carried. We will resume. Next item on the agenda, there's still a notices motion, item 5.2, Murray-Darling Basin Plan. Councillor McKay.
I've decided that I will withdraw that notice of motion and consider resubmitting next month.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Item 5.3, also Councillor McKay.
Yes, I'm going to withdraw that motion and consider resubmitting next month.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKay.
That will help our schedule.
Item 5.4, advocating the needs of refugee and visa holders. Councillor Kelly.
5.2 has been withdrawn.
5.2, 5.3 have been withdrawn.
Right, okay.
We're now on 5.4. Councillor Kelly, would you like to move your motion, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council write to Minister Tony Burke, Minister for Home Affairs and Minister for Immigration, to bring the issues of the Swan Hill and Robinvale region to his attention, to brief him on issues and needs such as pathway to permanency, PALM scheme, real population, settlement resources, health and housing of seasonal migrant workers.
Thank you. Before I ask for a seconder, are there any questions? Councillor? Yep. Any questions, councillors?
Can I suggest an amendment?
I have a mover and a seconder, so you may suggest an amendment.
I'd just like to add a dot point at the bottom, an agricultural visa. Need for an agricultural visa.
I'm happy to add that. That was something...
What was it, agricultural?
Visa.
Such as?
Sorry, what's
Okay,
visa?
A visa, a need for an
Visa.
agricultural visa. It's been regularly asked for by the VFF and other agricultural bodies. There's-
Councillor McKay, does that cover it?
I would say need for an agricultural visa.
Just the needs is written in, the,
such as,
in the body of the motion?
That's okay. Yep.
Yep. You accepted that, Councillor Kelly?
Yes, that was something I was going to discuss in my discussion anyway.
Thank you.
Yep.
Move Councillor Kelly, seconded. Sorry, yes, Councillor McPhee, you're happy with that. Second, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Kelly, you may speak to the motion.
Thank you. This letter was initiated when the announcement was made that Minister Tony Burke was going to take on these two ministries to form a large ministry. And I know that we have discussed most of these issues in our assemblies because we've had delegations from different community groups and reports on different aspects of council that these issues come up in. It's important to brief a new minister quickly and get our issues to his attention. We need, I'm very aware that we've put in an excellent submission to the recent call for submissions on the federal review of regional migration settings, supporting strong and sustainable regions, and I've looked at our submission and thank the officers for doing that. I think this letter is something that will amplify that and be very complementary to it. The success, something that's said in there is the success of migration and seasonal worker programs for the benefit of the nation, particularly regional communities, should be a priority for all levels of government, and that is true. Our advocacy on behalf of our community is really key. We can put things into words and summarise things from the information that we have, which you know, looking at our economic development strategy, looking at our council plan, our advocacy document, and the different reports and consultations and consultants that we gather a lot of data. So our submission is excellent, and this letter can be a condensed version of that. The issues that I list there, we all know how important the pathway to permanency is for fairness, the PALM scheme, the issues with that there's been, real population, it's something we talk about all the time, settlement resources and the pressure on services. We've been lobbied on that, dealing with partners like SMEC, and getting informed from them. Health and housing of seasonal migrant workers is something we have focused on and done good work in. The need of refugees and visa holders and also undocumented people to have access to Medicare is such an important thing to lobby on, particularly for the vulnerable, young people, women, pregnant women. So, you know, there's stories in our community where services and support isn't there, and we've all heard these stories, and they're not very good. They're not a good reflection. So we need to be a loud voice and speak up for these issues. These workers are key to our sustainability. They're key to our growth, our wealth. The billions of dollars that we generate, 20% of that is from the irrigation, and these workers keep that industry going. We couldn't do it without them. They're also key to other industries that we have, more and more, even health, farms, horticulture, the abattoirs. So one of our values is fairness, living standards, our reputational damage that could cause from these type of things where people aren't living at the standards they should be. So I think this letter is good. I could say lots more about it. The complexity and time to process visas, humanitarian needs, the support services pressure, they're all things that we need to bring to Minister Burke's attention. And I'm hoping that this letter can be ready so that if the Mayor gets a chance to take it to Canberra, he can.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor. Look, with the change of cabinet up there, it's just an opportunity. All these dot points are things we have been advocating over a number of years. I think it's appropriate just to write a letter to keep in front of the mind, and I'm sure the next council will be advocating for these as well, whoever the next council is. And it's just an opportunity to keep in front of the Minister's mind that we are still advocating and we will continue to push this message across to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Do we have any speakers against the motion? If not, I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. 5.5, health needs of community, GP availability and Swan Hill Hospital. Councillor Kelly. If you'd like to read the motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor. That Council writes to the Victorian Minister of Health, Minister for Health Infrastructure, the Honourable Mary Ann Thomas, to request a meeting to discuss the Victorian Government's plans for health networks and hospitals in our region, and to request to have input into the health infrastructure and social needs in our communities. Topics will include GP shortages and retention, housing, and the maternity specialist, emergency and community health capability needs for our regional hospital.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors, before I ask the seconder? There's no questions. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor McPhee, thank you. Councillor Kelly, wish to speak to your motion.
Yeah, look, each councillor brings a unique set of skills and experience into the chamber. Our life experience, our upbringing, education, community involvement all shape who we are and what we care about. It's taken time for me to gather information and understanding since I was elected 20 months ago, and I feel that this motion is generated from that. All of us around the chamber here have skin in the game. We live here, our families live here, our families work, and visit here, friends and families, work at the hospital. So our hospital and our health system is something we all care about. That's not questionable. So this letter is to Marianne Thomas, who we already have a relationship with. She came and turned the first sod at the new ED. This letter is just to keep at the front of her mind Swan Hill, bring up the issues of our specific geographic and social needs here. You know, you can read in our council plan and the municipal municipal public health and wellbeing. There's lots of stats here. I won't read them out, but they're not good. Our health stats, our social stats are not good. Mental health, respiratory health, so many factors. You know, we've got high vulnerability status. So, plus we're on the border. We've got that cross-border issue. We're saying our catchment, whether it's 30, 40, 50, it's a big catchment. We need a hospital that functions well, that has services. We cannot afford to lose any of our current services. We want to keep them and build them. So this letter will really get to the crux of that. And I think I've said there in my preamble, we're a positive, proactive community. I know there is people, I've been attending some of the meetings of the Tintinda CWA Health Committee that has been meeting and advocating and gathering information, talking to key leaders and stakeholders in that sphere. And I suppose this is a bit of a summary of what I've taken from being at those meetings, plus just being on council and reading the things that I've read, hearing the things that I've heard, having the reports that we've had at assemblies. So I think it's really key. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so let's be squeaky. This is a letter that can be, you know, the reform that she's bringing in. I know she made an announcement on Friday. It was on ABC News. But there's still questions about amalgamations, reform, money. The 1.5 billion she's announced is really great. But we need to make sure we get some of that. Key things, you can't get a GP appointment for a very long time, availability of beds, how are we going to staff our ED. So it's a voice for the community, and I think that's one of our main roles, so I'm hoping to get support on that, and understanding that there's no easy or quick fix. We have similar issues to other places in Australia, but I think if we keep pointing out our key differences, then we'll do better. And I think my preamble there is quite evident. I hope everyone's read it. And we want to respectfully highlight our needs, seek cooperation in a collaborative way to solve our problems. And it's in full respect and admiration for our hospital and the staff and the management there. And all the past groups that have advocated on this issue too.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McPhee, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, look, we are an ageing society. We all get old, as I am myself. And look, the community has had a big input into Swan needs a new hospital. As a result of that, we have got a new ED department being built, currently being built, and it is looking fantastic. My recollection of that initially was the federal government gave us $30 million and the state only gave us 18 million, I think, or thereabouts. The budget for it has gone up to about 60 odd million, and the state finally come to the party and give us some extra money for it, which is great to see. We want to ensure that the health networks, when the Victorian government talked about health networks and all the stuff in the media of recent times, they said they weren't amalgamating hospitals, but they were talking about amalgamating boards. What's their next step though? This is the question we ask ourselves. We need to be on the front foot in relation to make sure that the funding continues for our new hospital. That's stage one. We need every opportunity to talk to the Minister to push the need that Swan Hill does need stage two and further stages developed to get a new hospital. Irrespective of where you live in Victoria, you should receive the same health service. We do understand that we're not going to receive the top specialists like in Melbourne, but we need an adequate and capable health service here for the first and primary consultations. And people in Swan Hill and the surrounds are more than happy then to progress to a major hospital for further treatment. But we need the facilities here at the initial stages to be able to deal with that and into the future. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Do we have any speakers against the motion? If no speakers against the motion, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Item 5.6, improving solar deals and lowering power bills. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is that council write to Powercor to advocate on behalf of people in the municipality who have solar but are not able to feed back to the grid, and ask how and when the blockages that exist will be resolved.
Sorry, so that's what you've read out is different to what's in the agenda.
I wanted to request that it's changed to this more simple one sentence motion, and I'm sorry I haven't given Sharon a copy of that, but I will do it now. Sorry, I forgot I hadn't done that. I think talking to myself doesn't always get things done. And I ask if I can do that.
Based on what you've read out, I'm waiting to see it on the screen. But,
yeah.
Based on what you've read out, whilst it is different, I don't think the intent of the motion is substantially different. So I'm prepared to.
Yeah, I've just taken out.
Prepared to accept.
Thank you.
The change, but we'll just pop it on the screen.
Let me know if you got that, Sharon.
It's just come through. I'm happy to accept the change, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you.
It doesn't change the intent.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion. I'm assuming 1, 2 and 3 will be deleted. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do I have any questions on the motion? Now that it's up there, people are...
Just one question, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Is Powercor the proper organisation to be writing to in relation to this?
Councillor Kelly, can you answer that question?
Well, I feel they are. Through my research, in discussions with some of the electricians who actually put solar on, they have said that it is. And also I had a discussion with the Powercor people. They have a special...
might I suggest...
They have a special
with the
group
called... Of the meeting, might I suggest that perhaps Powercor be changed to relevant authority? Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I would be happy with that. I would be happy with that. I mean, if we did that, we could talk to the mob over the river who aren't Powercor, but the same problem. Yeah.
Happy with that, Councillor McPhee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McPhee. Councillor Kelly, wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, with power bills being high and rising and the high penetration of solar in our community already, in the economic development strategy it had a little insight window which I found excellent. It said Swan Hill has approximately 1,710 small-scale systems installed, which is 18%. Not actually sure what that 18% is, maybe 18% of households, with a collective capacity of 13,139 kilowatts as at March the 31st, 2023. and that was sourced from www.solarchoice.net.au. So we have a lot of people with solar, but being told they can't feed back into the grid has prevented some people taking up solar. Now this is irrelevant to, I know the solar feed-in tariff is coming down and it's not as good as it was, but I still think it's an issue of equity and fairness that if you have solar, you should have equal ability to feed back to the grid to your neighbour or someone up the road or someone in a different street. So I think advocating to Powercore through a letter will enable us to understand, okay, what are the blockages? Are they blockages that Powercore have control over and can do upgrades on? Or are they larger blockages through the grid? Find that out and then say, well, are you upgrading? Are these blockages going to be removed? Many areas in Swan Hill have infrastructure capacity issues that constrain them getting the most from their solar. And we maybe can do something about this. We can advocate on behalf of those people and we might be able to get a resolution. So in regards to our council plan, I think this is in line with it. We talk about livability, we talk about engaging and empowering and mobilising communities to prepare for, adapt to and mitigate the effects of changing climate. We want people to electrify, to be able to deal with heat waves and have their coolers on. And we want people to be able to get cheaper power. So with our leadership pillar, we have 4.1.1 well-managed resources for a sustainable future, bold leadership, strong partnerships and effective advocacy. Well, I think this letter comes in line with that. We already have a relationship with Powercore and through one authority to another we can discuss it with them. We have our economic development strategy, we have and we have our sustainable living strategy as well. So I put this to my fellow councillors to support.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McCarthy, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I think that it's just recently been acknowledged that rooftop solar could be a fantastic stabilisation to the entire network, but it's not going to stabilise anything if you can't get the power back to the grid. So on very hot days when there's high use in the city and the power grid is under pressure, it would be the very best if the solar that's on our roofs could be sent back to the city. That would be optimising the resource that's here. It would also maybe potentially be sort of a sweetener to come and live here. What we would like to see, I also think it's very important that people are paid for what they're feeding back into the grid, and I think that would be an extra incentive for us to move towards renewable energy, and that's not to have it all in the hands of big companies, but also that rooftop solar is really bringing your power bill down and helping generate some income. But nothing like that is going to happen unless we do have better infrastructure, whether it's the transformers at the end of the street or the lines. I'm not sure exactly where. I think it varies in all different places, but it's very important for our region. We are in a warm to hot place, and we're connected to the grid, so we can feed back. So let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. I have open speakers against the motion. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Councillor King. There's a few realities here that have been forgotten about. The reality of supply and demand. When the sun's shining, everybody's got solar power. You have to have someone to sell it to, and in reality, the supply and demand equation shows, and so you can look this up on the internet yourself at the things, power price goes negative. So in the middle of the day when everybody's got power. The economic reality is that it goes negative. If you want to avail yourself of feed-in tariffs, you really have to store it in a battery, which is what the bigger solar producers and solar farms are finding out. They're going into curtailment at times. they'll have to put it in a battery, and then somebody has to manage the sale of that electricity back to the grid. The physics reality is that if everybody in the street produces an excess of solar, it can't fit down the line. So that would mean that we've got to build bigger and more capacity power lines in every street, which might entail knocking down many trees. The whole concept of getting cheaper power, when half the price of power is, in fact, the poles and wires and maintenance thereof, which is the price of labour, in effect, means that price of power will never come down. It'll only ever go up because half the price is linked to the price of labour. And in Australia, the price of labour keeps going up and up and up. So, it'll never happen, I'm sure. It just can't ever happen. I know you say the sun's free, but so is uranium sitting in the ground, so is coal sitting in the ground. They're all free. It's the cost of actually producing it. And the best way to use solar is to harvest your own, store it yourself, use it yourself, and then you will lower your power bills that way. But over time, again, the economic reality is the repairs and maintenance of your solar generating facility, is that cost effective over time? So there's all those things to consider. As I say, writing to Powercorp and like it's not, I know it's nice and warm and fuzzy about changing the planet and saving the world and everything, but the realities are, you've got a lot of something, it's a commodity, you've got a lot of it, nobody wants to buy it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Are there any other speakers in favour of the motion? Speakers against? Councillor Jeffrey?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the context around the notice of motion, but I think the reality is, and I've installed a solar panel system before and have been fortunate to be able to sell it back. But when you speak to your electrician or you speak to any of the grant providers that through FIC or federal government, they give you grants, potentially if you're eligible, you're talking about, well, I've just looked back my last 31 days, I got $10 credit. So I just don't feel like this is effective use of council time in delivering against council plan. That the biggest benefit in today's age of solar panels is using what you generate at the time within the house during the day to avoid paying that higher unit rate per kilowatt. Putting $10 a month back into the grid, to me it's just not effective. Effective advocacy. So really, today's day and age, it's pitfall feed towers back into the system. You don't get a lot for it. You're better off using it in the house. So if the benefit is within the house, so if you want to get better benefit, you get a battery, but there's $12,000 to $20,000 investment. So I just think, given the context and given the never say that very properly.
Negligible.
The small return that each person that wants to sell back into the grid, I think we've got higher priorities as a council to focus on right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Kelly, I'll give you the right of reply.
Thank you. I think it's a bit rich for people who possibly have the ability to feed back into the grid to not think that it's fair that others can do the same. We want to talk to Powercorp about making it fair and equitable. It's really important that we educate the community to keep informed of how to lower their power bills, because it really is a big issue with cost of living. People are getting their power bills, they're hundreds of dollars, and it can really stress people out and really cause a lot of disharmony and worry. People having to decide whether they eat or pay their power bill. So we want to do everything we can to facilitate people being able to have lower power bills, being able to feed back into the grid, can contribute to that. It's neither here nor there, and it's a larger argument to talk about when to feed into the grid, what the feed-in tariff is. It's a moving space. Things are changing all the time, that is true, but I do not think that has an effect on whether we should. It's still a fairness thing about who can feed back into the grid and who can't. So I think a simple letter, our officers are very talented, they could do this very quickly, and it's not an impost on council's time or money. So I ask for your support.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Well, the debate's been had, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Are there any foreshadowed items, councillors? No? Any urgent items not included in the agenda? We will move to section 8 to consider and order on councillor reports, and we'll start this way and go that way today. So, Councillor Kelly, if you can give your report, please.
Thank you. Okay, it was a short month because this meeting's been brought forward, but I went to Melbourne and went to an ALGWA function. It was Australian Local Government Women's Association, and for any prospective women councillors out there, it's a great organisation that supports women councillors. This workshop was on body language, so I don't think I'm using any of the things we learnt yet, but wait and see. It was really entertaining. It was a morning's show at Manningham Council, and yeah, maybe I'll bring a report to council about that. I went off my own bat. River People's Forum was on at Lower Murray Inn on the 28th of July. That was a great event. 80 people came, and it was also broadcast. A collaboration between our local environment groups and Environment Victoria, and also Mildren, the Murray Lower Darling Rivers Indigenous Nations. Very successful, and Lower Murray Inn is such a wonderful venue that really people are just amazed when they come and see it. Swan Hill Market at Riverside Park, great again. We had, it's time for AGM, so there was the Slim AGM on the 3rd, the Residents and Ratepayers AGM on the 6th, and the Menang Improvement Group AGM on the 7th. I also did an Audit and Risk Committee meeting and went to a Vic Grid consultation drop-in session in Kerrang on the 7th of August. That was good. I'll bring a report on that too. And that'll do.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, just the report will be attached to the minutes, Mr Mayor, but just one thing I'd like to mention was, as Councillor Kelly said, AGMs are in. I attended the writing for the disabled AGM. As with all volunteer groups, I encourage members of the community to get involved in these groups. They do a wonderful thing. These groups, as I say, writing for the disabled is particularly the benefit that the kids get out of that, and the adults that are disabled, getting on a horse just makes, it blows your mind as to how they can improve with that sort of thing. But the volunteers get a lot of it. So any group that you're interested in, please volunteer. As I've always said, my time on council, we could not exist as a society without our volunteers. So certainly consider volunteering in some form or other in some group. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Young.
I've been involved with Sharon. Can you put mine up on board?
Yep.
Yes, CUC meeting, which is that's going on really great right now with the enrolments and all the facilities they've got there. It's pretty impressive. Swan Link meeting, Ultima Progress Association I linked up by phone, and the market We Believe in Unicorns, and the other one we did was coffee with the councillor at the Swan Hill Market.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Moore.
Very quiet 3 weeks, Mr Mayor. I think it was the Lord and Mallee Leadership Address or Q&A, which Councillor McPhee and yourself attended, which was quite an experience. 8th to 8th, I went to the Good Kitchen dinner, and we're talking about volunteers. I think they've said they've dispensed some 25,000 meals since they've started for homeless and those less well off. It was an enormous number over the last 9 years. Great. The volunteers down there do an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Jeffrey.
Fortunately, I've had a fairly challenging family health month for last month, so I haven't been able to get to anything.
Thank you. Councillor McCarthy.
I had the Boundary Bend community meeting and the River People's Forum and a meeting at NIA, a Mid-Murray community group meeting about river issues. Thanks.
Thank you. My report will be with the minutes. Just want to highlight a couple of things. The Rail Freight Alliance meeting in Melbourne, which was an opportunity to have an informal chat with Paul Eunice, who is the Departmental Secretary for the Department of Transport and Planning. So he serves 5 different ministers, so the opportunity to have some informal advocacy around some of our transport issues in our municipality. I was at the annual presentation night for the Swan Hill Fire Brigade, where they were unfortunately called out to extinguish a fire that somebody decided was a great idea to light in our disabled toilet down at Riverside Park. Can't quite believe that people do that, but anyway. So I thank them for their service and for their volunteering. As Councillor McPhee pointed out, volunteering is under pressure, and we see it within the Fire Brigade as well. So I thank them for their contribution and the other emergency services as well. Myself and Mr Patat presented to the State Parliamentary Inquiry into local government funding and sustainability, and that was on the back of our submission that we made as a council. So we presented and took Q&A in that inquiry, which was quite daunting to start with, but went really well, and the feedback from the committee has been very encouraging. That they really appreciated the time and effort that we put into that. And finally, the last one, was honoured to be a special guest on Noel Watson's footy show on Saturday morning to talk about the sustainability of footy in our region and everything that goes with that, including community and facilities, of course. So happy to, outside of this forum, happy to take any questions and discussion around any of those items. It's time now for us to move in camera. Before we do, I will thank members of the gallery. Got one waving his finger at me.
Are we in camera now?
No. No, we're not in camera yet.
We might be able to address the council meeting in camera, in this in-camera session.
That's at the start of the meeting.
I don't think our rules allow
No.
for that. Well, the acting CEO's checking that.
It's at the start of the meeting.
Just a human condition of being able to express something in camera.
That's for open.
And I have a delegate from the healthcare advocacy group which would like to make a couple of suggestions.
It's an open forum.
Just, before we go to that, I'll
Suspend the standing orders if we need to, just to double check.
yeah, I'll suspend standing orders just while we double check the governance rules around that. If I can have a motion to suspend standing orders, please.
I'll put a motion to suspend standing orders.
Thank you, Councillor McCoy. Seconder, Councillor Moore. Thank you. All in favour? That's carried.
Well, then you suspend and we could have a discussion.
Right, we're back live. In response to your request, I will draw your attention to Council's governance rules, 7.17. Questions submitted to Council must be in written form. There's a number of other requirements there, but also received no later than 10 a.m. on the day prior to the meeting by letter, by email or by hand delivery. And in our meeting guidelines, again in section 7, community questions and submissions, 7.1, open forum and questions of council time. Council will hold an open forum and questions of council time for up to 30 minutes duration at the beginning of each scheduled meeting to allow public submissions and questions of council. So in this instance, and I'll refer to those rules and not allow questions.
The open session.
The open forum? There's open forum at the beginning of the meeting. So with that, I will thank the members of the gallery for your attendance. I'll thank people for their attendance on live stream. We will obviously come out of camera to close the meeting, but there will be no further business conducted once we come out of camera. So I thank you for your attendance. I'll ask for a motion that we go into camera, please.
Sure.
Move Councillor McKay, second to Councillor Jeffrey. Those in favour? Motion is carried. Just remain seated for a moment, councillors, while we go off the live stream. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance at the scheduled August meeting. I thank you for that, and I will now officially close the meeting at 5:19 p.m. Thank you. Just wait.